Peace and blessings. Peace and blessings to the universe.
Guess I'm locked in. Looking for a piece of mind. I've been trying to redefine life. I can see the signs. Word is going to see me shine. Fighting for my soul, say, whipping fast, no brakes.
Jasmine ate those 20 Christian women up for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and she did it with kindness, grace, poise, respect, an educated mind, which is nothing that any of those 20 Christian women could give back to her. Now, do you know the video that I'm talking about? Now, there's a spiritual woman on here. Her name is Jasmine. She's kind of like, I would say like me, more spiritual than religious. Well, she did a panel. Yeah, I guess we're calling it a panel with 20 devoted Christian women. And they were going back and forth on religion versus spirituality and the things of tarot cards and crystals and why these 20 Christian women don't believe that crystals have healing powers and that tarot cards are demonic. Basically, everything that they believed was demonic. And accusing her of all of her intentions and things are coming from a demonic force. And she was giving them reasons why, no, that's absolutely incorrect. Your thoughts are just coming from this book written by men. So it's a back and forth. But let me just say, those women were so defensive. They gave her such nasty looks. They tried convincing her that what she believes in is incorrect. However, not once did she ever return that type of energy towards these Christian women, which just proves my point that Christians are the most sensitive, fragile, love to play victims, and actually don't even believe in what they're pushing to the world. Because first of all, being defensive is the number one clue and key that you don't believe in what you're believing and that you have a guilty conscience about something. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's absolutely amazing. It's blowing up right now on TikTok. Her name is Jasmine. It's phenomenal. It will literally change the way you look at spirituality, Christianity. It's beautiful.
Out of the 21 women that were sitting there that day, I was fascinated because Jasmine was the closest representation of Christ consciousness in that room. She led with no judgment. She led with an open heart and mind, incredible intelligence. She led with wisdom. And she actually reflected the way that Jesus spoke to the Pharisees and Sadducees when he was on earth. It was really fascinating to watch. I really think in this day, if Jesus was in that seat, they would have treated him the same way. If they didn't have the conscious knowledge of who he truly was, and he came down, sat and had a debate with 20 women in the church. What do you think he was doing with changing water to wine or walking on water or the miracle of the loaves and fishes? They were calling him a witch or someone crazy back then. You know? It's just fascinating to me how modern Christianity has demonized things that exist in nature when God created all of that and said that it was good. The way that people's minds will work so that things make rigid sense, and you could feel the unhappiness and the stress and the fear on those 20 women. A few of them were starting to come around and open up a little bit, but I remember how deeply bound I felt being a woman deeply involved in the church. And I mean, I was a deaconess. I was a minister in training. I was a minister's wife, right? I was all the way in there, speaking tongues, serving communion, which I really enjoyed that part. But I was an intercessor in prayer, all of the things. But I also remember there was so much about myself that I had to deny about myself. So many things I was involved in that I didn't like. So many ways in my body I was tired and confused and felt like it was my lot in life to be deeply unhappy, because life isn't about your happiness. It's about your blessedness. It's about your holiness. And that doesn't mean that you get to be happy in this life. You'll get to be happy when you die. Jasmine is a direct affront to the entire evangelical modern Christian mindset. But she's the closest representation of what I believe Christ would be if he was here and sitting in that chair.
No.
So, real quick, I am a spiritualist. I am an eclectic occultist. So, traditional spirituality would be Christianity, Judaism. There's a lot of forms of traditional spirituality. So, I would also consider myself a traditional spiritualist. So, it's not that I subscribe to the New Age spirituality that you're talking about. And most of us, as witches and spiritualists, do not subscribe to this idea of being able to experience spirituality through a crystal. We're not idiots. So most of us think that crystals are just a tool. They're always just a tool. The Bible can be a tool, but you don't have to have your relationship through God through the Bible. You're supposed to experience God personally. So crystals do not have to be your way into spirituality for you to have a spiritual experience. I wear crystals. I wear this moonstone set in opalite mosaic, but it's because it's pretty. I like the way that it makes me feel, and I like the way that it looks. But when I say I like the way that it makes me feel, I like how it looks against my skin, and it makes me feel more feminine when I wear it, because moonstone is associated with femininity and the moon is beautiful to me. So anything that represents the moon or looks like the moon, it just makes me feel good because I like looking at the moon, especially when it's casted over water. So it doesn't have to be that.
Yeah.
You were a Christian before. Why was that not sufficient for you?
Because there were too many inconsistencies. Going back to, I'm Black, so let's just start there. I'm not giving God a pass for slavery. 400 years in the way in which this country is set up and the world is set up and everybody hating us and us trying to figure out why do we have to be the most hated, I think there should be a better explanation. There should be more interaction, more intervention being happening, divine intervention. Again, God has all this power. Do something, brother.
So you mentioned not giving God a pass for slavery. I'm Black too. I don't think slavery was right at all. And you said giving God a pass, but do you think God is giving those men and the ideologies and the systems
waiting till they get to heaven or waiting to get to hell? Yes, I think that's giving them a pass.
He's storing up wrath for the day of judgment. So it would be better for God to wait. I don't think it's giving God a pass, but we could disagree on that. I don't think that's God giving the enslavers a pass at all. Because he's merciful and he's just, right? God is going to avenge us, right? So in a Christian perspective, it's better that we wait, that God wait,
Understood.
and it would be more
It
wrath.
would have been better had God never provided the colonizers. It would have been better had God never provided the enslavers. It would have been better had God never provided or created Satan to sin, and then all of us had to sin. It would have just been better from a non-believer standpoint.
Okay, but a white person might not feel that way. Of course they wouldn't. Just giving contextual advice. So for you to say it's better that the colonizers would not be, so that like a white person would not feel that way. And I'm not a white apologist, so
no, I
I'm just giving you that much.
I know they wouldn't feel that way, of course.
But also, you mentioned not feeling the Holy Spirit, and then you mentioned your relationship with your own physical father. But God is not a man that he shall lie, and he's without a shadow of a turning. And we see his character, not just his word and what's explicitly written in the truth in the text, but you see his character revealed. And you know that Jesus says, lo, I would be with you all the days of your life. I will be with you throughout the end of the age.
God has a lot of human characteristics. God is a jealous God. How human of him.
Right.
Why do you need to be jealous as a God? You have all, real quick, why are we God's failed representation of self-love? It's something that I posted on the internet. I'm not asking this right now. Mm-hmm. It's one of my most viral videos, though, is we are a failed representation of God's attempt at loving himself, because having to create us to have somebody that can come back and revalidate that you are good just seems really, really stupid from a non-believer standpoint. And then when you start to add in all the horrible things that come with it, y'all keep going back to Satan. But the creator of Satan is still going to be God, and God still knew who Satan was going to the church. So when the majority of us, because as a former Christian and now a non-believer, when I was in the church and outside of the church, the normal encounters that we have, because even here today, there have been many of people that have sat in this chair and told me basically why I am wrong. And that is the thing about Christians.
Yeah.
We don't go around telling y'all just off bat, coming as like we're trying to minister to you, this is wrong and you need to heal from this. We let y'all have y'all business because that's your business.
Yeah.
But it's when you come over and you start imposing and telling me why something that I am doing is wrong, when I know know the Bible says da-da-da-da-da, you can do things with good intention and it still lead you to hell. But I know the Bible because I read the Bible, and I know that there are a lot of inconsistencies and contradictions within the Bible. I don't want a Bible that supports slaves, obey your earthly masters. I don't want to hear that. I don't want to have been aware of the history of slavery in the way that I am, and the history of how immigrants currently are being treated in this country. We have children in Gaza being blown to pieces, and it's kind of like, you know, God is so big, God is so powerful, God has all this strength. And as a child and as an adult, my question was always, why not just eradicate of sin? And I know the answer is free will, but me not having the choice of a cookie that's poisonous versus cookies that are not poisonous does not take away my option. You can give me oatmeal raisin, snickerdoodle, and chocolate chip. Okay, I can't have peanut butter. Then I just don't have peanut butter. But if I never had peanut butter to know that there was ever even peanut butter, I'm not gonna be missing peanut butter. So it's not like I needed sin to be able to choose him. Why did he need sin to be that thing that made us come back to him?
In the Jasmine versus 20 Christians discussion, what I witnessed was not only a powerful conversation that needed to be had, but also a visible shift within Black women as a collective. I'm seeing a clear divide between those who are choosing freedom and centering their spiritual identities and those who are remaining tethered to fear and religious indoctrination that continues to keep us in a state of oppression. See, that's the thing with indoctrination, the power of indoctrination, especially religious indoctrination, is that it uses fear. It passes down fear and damnation as truth and salvation, which makes it difficult to recognize that one of the roots of our oppression is being indoctrinated into a theology of fear through religion. And ironically, that was the very tactic, if you all noticed, that was used in the debate. Shame and fear. But Jasmine wasn't having it. She was fully grounded and rooted in her own power and sovereignty and not afraid. So for generations, religion has held Black women in particularly captive. It has been a source of much of our own internalized oppression. The reason why is that it teaches us to look outside of ourselves to a male-centered God for salvation while failing to recognize or acknowledge the Black woman in her divinity. And so even when you think about the Trinity, the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, it erases the mother. Louisa Teach calls it the barren trio. Where is the mother? Because without the mother, there is no father, there is no son. And so when a religious system intentionally erases you from your own divinity, it becomes much easier to convince you that your purpose is perpetual servitude, servitude to God, servitude to men, servitude to everyone and everything except yourself. And it teaches you to believe in the church, but not your own magic, not your own power. Women have often been taught to give that power away, to give it to the deacons, to give it to the pastors, to give it to the priests, to give it to the bishops, to give it to the apostles, who are overwhelmingly men and whom we've been conditioned to deem as more worthy of spiritual authority than ourselves. We've been taught by religious indoctrination to remain in abusive relationships, to turn the other cheek in the name of God, to fear and demonize our sexuality, to teach our children to be obedient to the same doctrines that continue to position us at the bottom of the religious and social hierarchy or erases us completely. It teaches us to be serving, but not sovereign. And this was intentional. And some Black women like Jasmine are choosing to remember and embody their divinity. What you witnessed with her was the embodiment of the divine within, and what you witnessed with the 20 Christians who were indoctrinated was an allegiance to an authoritarian God who is mean-spirited, jealous, and takes pleasure in shaming and condemning others to hell.
Before that,
The
when
Bible
it was
written
oral
over a span of
language.
1,500 years. So even if it is 2,000 years
Over
old.
a span, sure.
Right.
But it's much older than 1,500 years.
Right, but when a story starts being written, especially a story that is accounting for things, it's best if written when those things happen for the most accurate form of relaying whatever that is.
So then most of history can be discounted. Alexander the Great,
But
all of
most
the
of
things we know about him
history
are hundreds, thousands of years
most of
after he
history is
existed.
still them trying to understand. Only Christians, for the most part, have this Bible in which they're like, no, this is absolute truth. History, if you have artifacts that you find, they may see, okay, we have this, but they may not be able to determine everything about that society. And that may not be the goal, to know everything and determine everything. It's just, hey, we have this one piece that represents this. Christianity and the Bible that goes with it is just one representation of a society and a culture. It was not the totality of things.
And that is the reason why I do not go to church. Watching the Jasmine video versus the Christians is exactly what the problem is. A lot of people say they are supposed to be ambassadors for God, that they are supposed to be here to help you find your spiritual connection to Christ, when they are the most bitter, insufferable, condescending, nasty know-it-alls who do not even have the ability to allow someone to articulate a differing opinion without being overtaken with this nasty, and I get it. You want to defend your religion, but if you are solid in it, there is no need to be mean or nasty. But a lot of you sit on Christianity as a way to be superior to other people rather than to be a teacher or to be someone who wants to pull people into Christ. A lot of you are mean girls. A lot of you are miserable. A lot of you are mean. And unfortunately, that is not a representation of the joy of the Lord. So you're not going to cause anyone to come to you. What you're doing is repelling people and making people run into all other different things and different forms of spirituality. Because if you are a representation of what Christ is and what being Christ-like is, then people don't want it. Do with that what you will.
Okay, I just finished watching one New Ager versus 20 Christians, which the New Ager is Jasmine, and she's really not a New Ager. That title was totally an attention grab. But I want to say shout out to Jasmine, the patience that Jasmine possessed sitting on that stage. Because I would have told them, immediately to kiss my ass. But Jasmine sat there and she had so much patience, so much grace. Like, you can see the opposites as she's sitting there. And she sat in the position as a teacher. That's what she does very well. And they had so much pride and she had so much nuance in her belief. One of the girls called it like a smoothie religion. Like, what is this smoothie religion? And when it comes to spirituality, a lot of people have a lot of different layers to what they believe. And because Christians don't understand that, they come and they try to correct what they don't understand. So that was their position. Instead of trying to engage, trying to learn from her, they were trying to correct what it is that she believes. And this is something that they have always done. Christians never fail to show the legacy of their colonial roots. They never fail to show the legacy of that. They have one of the youngest religions along with Islam. The Bible is roughly maybe 1,500 years old. We have religions that have been here for thousands of years, hundreds of thousands of years. And especially when it comes to spirituality, and this is something that Jasmine said, you don't come with your baby ass religion and then you're trying to tell people that something was stolen, manifestation is stolen from Christianity. That's not how that works, because these spiritual practices have been existing longer. They've been existing longer. The birth story of Jesus is not even unique. That has already been around. So many facets of the Bible have been borrowed from other spiritual practices that have been around forever. But then they come and they act like they have the final truth. Just like colonizers, when they went to different islands, they would strip people of, their spiritualities, their practices, and they would call them demonic. And this is witchcraft. Because we don't understand it, we have to demonize it. That is the legacy of colonialism. Another thing that I thought was very interesting is they were like asking Jasmine for evidence. And I always find it funny when Christians demand evidence. It's like, what evidence do we have of the accounts of the Bible? You literally believe in a talking snake. You literally believe that a man was swallowed up by a whale. What evidence do we have of that? What evidence do we have that life, that a woman comes from a man's rib? We literally have no evidence of the accounts that you believe are true. Like...
Right, so the universe is God. I chose this because I think oftentimes there is a big rift between Christians and spiritualists over terminology. So that's why I chose this question. Who wants to start?
Can I ask, how are you defining God? Like, what characteristics do you think a being needs to have to be considered God? Like, would you say eternality is something you think God has to have or possess?
No, honestly, I think anything could become a god to anyone. So I don't think something or a being needs to have specific characteristics to be considered God. I think the reason I also went for this question, if we get into like terminology, is when we talk about the universe based off its scientific definition, it is everything that encompasses matter, antimatter, all space, all time, and God is to be omnipresent. So if he is all space and all time, and everything on this earth is of his creation, then everything outside of this earth would also be of his creation. And also historically, when they talk about the heavens, they're normally referencing the sky, space, things that are expansive. So that is the universe, is how I normally apply it. So when I think about the God, or God is the universe, I think about God being bigger than just this planet that we live on. I just kind of make God larger, I think, than how it was presented to me in Christianity.
I would be curious to know, do you think presence has to be identical to identity? For example, you're present in that chair.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean you have to be identical to the chair, or is there room for distinction?
I think there's room for distinction.
Okay, and so would you be willing to extend that to God in the same sense? Because you mentioned omnipresence, and I think when having this conversation, sometimes there's like a divergence of perspectives because people usually think that omnipresence equals identity. And obviously the Christian doesn't think that. The Christian would say that God's presence is distinct from his identity, which is why you have scriptures in the Bible in 2 Chronicles where it says the eyes of the Lord go to and fro on the face of the earth, seeking who he can show himself strong to. So how would that make sense? Obviously, I'm sure we don't agree that Yahweh is the same God that you're serving, but if we're talking about Yahweh, how would that make sense?
So I want to make sure I understand the question. We're asking if God can be more than the fact that he is present everywhere. Is that?
No, I'm asking, why does it have to be omnipresence equals identity? Because it seems like you're saying because God is omnipresent, that means he is in
universe.
Everything. He
I
is the
see.
universe. And I'm not finding how that flows.
Okay, I think if a painter were to paint something, we would say that is an expression of the artist. That's normally why they create something. So I think you're always going to have, as a God of such magnitude, identity is kind of intertwined with your presence. Like if God is all-knowing, well, then that is something bigger than just this planet, knows more than just this planet, created more than just this planet. So it is not that God is the universe as we can see it or can't see it, as far as like the solar systems and the galaxy. It means God is all things and God is within all things. So nothing is removed in that sense. So it's not that his identity is the universe. I don't identify him as he even. It's just a larger, more expansive way of encompassing how big God is or how much could go into what God is.
She was another one in which the end of her argument felt like the flesh started to rise up. There are so many examples within this debate that cover the basis of why people have deconstructed and issues within our community that we've had a hard time to address. Thank God for this video, because I think we plainly see what's been holding Black culture back and what's been holding back progress. Now, that's against capitalism and white supremacy and all that, yes, but even in-house within our own communities, we have this issue.
So you mentioned not giving God a pass for slavery. I'm Black too. I don't think slavery was right at all. And you said giving God a pass. But do you think God is giving those men and the ideologies in the system
Waiting till they get to heaven or waiting to get to hell? Yes, I think that's giving him a
storing
pass.
up wrath for the day of judgment. God he's merciful and he's just, right? God is going to avenge us, right? So it's in a Christian perspective, it's better that we wait, that God wait.
More than half of the women that participated in the Jasmine versus 20 Christians debate were Black women. More than half were Black women. God's not giving these oppressors a pass. He's just waiting to boil this energy up for a big day. what? And highlighting Black women when they come to defending this faith, there's one thing that kept happening that I do want to highlight as well.
But God is not a man that he shall lie, and he's without a shadow of a turning. And we see his character, not just his word and what's explicitly written in the truth in the text, but you see his character revealed. And God has a lot of human characteristics. God is a jealous God. How human of him. Right. Why do you need to be jealous as a God? You have, real quick, why are we God's failed representation of self-love? Because having to create us to have somebody that can come back and revalidate that you are good just seems really, really stupid from a non-believer standpoint. And then, God is not a man that he shall lie. Character never changes. So you saying that you saw God and didn't find him, I would say keep seeking. And I'm not saying that you didn't seek enough, but it says seek me and you shall find me when you seek me with all your heart. And I did. And I'll leave it at that.
I didn't know you could end debates with I'll leave it at that, but wow. I think it's very interesting to repeat a scripture that is referring to God as a man, saying that he wouldn't lie over and over. But he's jealous though. And this opens up another can of Black women in Christianity Williams that we just don't have enough time for. But you can see, can y'all see it? It's so, my God.
Outside of the church. Give me history outside of the church.
But why do we need history outside of the church when the church is the one who's documenting
inside of the
history?
church. The church is not, you cannot just keep using the church as a vacuum. God has
I'm
to
not
be
using the church
outside
as a
of the
vacuum.
church.
The Bible is also
Jesus' miracles
considered
happened outside of the temple.
I just want to provide. I just want to provide
a very reliable historical text. Can I just finish my thought real quick? The
Not
Bible
really.
is just considered. It's considered a very reliable historical text.
To
Also,
whom?
even to reference to
whom?
many historians. I just gave
So
you a
who
couple
are the
examples.
historians by name?
I just gave you a couple examples of the early church. There
But
are
I want
many
examples
historians
outside of
through
the
time.
church because Jesus was outside of the church doing these miracles.
Yeah, there's secular historians.
Yeah,
who
that's
will
what I want.
use
I just
the
want
Bible
secular
as-
history. That's why I'm asking you for something outside of the church. But
Yeah.
Emily, what were you going to say?
To provide context with that, it is just, I think it's a little dishonest to say like Jesus was performing what we consider witchcraft because the context of that
we
is
we as witches, not you as Christians. You guys would not consider it to be
no.
witchcraft.
Yes, I'm sorry, I might have misspoke, but with context, Jesus only performed those miracles and those acts of healing because he had already made the claim to be divine,
Son of God,
to be
yes.
God.
Mhm.
And we need evidence for that sort of thing. You're asking for evidence. We
But-
might ask you for
Yeah,
evidence.
and I
As humans,
understand
we
that.
need that. So it's just to substantiate his claims, and he proved to be God. Through that,
the Bible, through the works and the stories within the Bible.
Well,
Your personal experiences, we're going to just disregard just temporarily because I know we're using the Bible as a historical reference. So if the Bible written 15...
But you're using it as a reference as well.
I am using it right now for the sake of this point.
For how witches and people view Jesus as one of their own.
Oh yeah, through his stories in the Bible. So the same way I said earlier that I consider gods to be egregores. Athena, any of the gods within any other pantheon are going to be an egregore to me. So they all have stories of things in which they did. Now I might relate with, let's say, Venus. I might be like, yeah, I agree with beauty to this extent in the way in which she wielded it. I agree with Jesus in the way that he wielded his love. I don't have to agree all the way through to be like, oh, like, yes, I'm thoroughly a believer, but I do think I could be like, Jesus was a cool dude based off the stories of the Bible. But I want y'all to understand, we as non-believers will never see the Bible as being enough proof because there is all of this happening right now. So what we look for as evidence is something as miraculous as the things that happened within the Bible happening more so now. We have all this BS going on in the world. And so I think for a lot of us non-believers, it's like, where the hell is Jesus right now? Where is God? Send the rapture, dude. Look at all this shit happening. Sorry, y'all. Look at all this crap happening. There are terrible people in high places, and they are using God's name. We live in a Christian country that uses God's name all the time in the most horrific, deplorable ways that do not account for most Christians, and I know that. So your beliefs are all going to be different, just like my belief is going to be different. But in that, I do believe that Jesus was a great representation of the way in which you can go outside of the organized religion in which you may have agreed, I am the Son of God. But I could also say, well, I'm the daughter of Christ. I'm the daughter of God. And you guys will go, well, no, you're not, based off your perspectives.
Right.
But it is a claim that I will make.
I need to ask you, was Jesus...
Locked in.